Hello, can you hear me, please? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Hi, Kumi. I hear you just fine.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Pharmola. So, I'm not sure what happened to my laptop, but it seems I would have to restart. So I just joined on my phone, so we can get going. So I'll just start with brief introductions. I think I'll start with myself and then everyone on the call, and we'll close out the introductions with Dr. Faramola, who is going to just tell us a bit about ourselves, and then we'll go right into the session. Again, if you can just reach out to some of your friends that you know may have indicated interest, just to remind them of this session. All right, so my name is Olakumi. I think most people on this call know me. I'm Olakumi. I'm a medical doctor and currently doing 100 things. But the reason I think I usually start this session with really just explaining the reason why this platform exists. And I think it's from the fact that after medical school, I had that whole, should I say, confusion of, okay, I don't think I really like clinical medicine, but then it's like the only other option is community health. And it's like, do I really want to do community health? Even if I want to do community health, what is like the pathway to, because with clinical medicine, everybody knows, oh, once you finish school, do your house job, do NYC 1 year, then do primaries and then get into residency. But with every other thing that was not clinical medicine, so it's like there was no clear path to explain to a medical doctor how they can potentially venture into it. And again, the part of, oh, you've spent 6 years in school plus, usually, I don't know any medical school right now that is not spending 6 years. Most of us spend a minimum of 7 years. And then you add the period you waited for house job, it's already going to almost 10 years of your life that you dedicated to clinical medicine. So it's almost like, how can you even begin to think about doing something else? And I tried finding resources and all to, like, should I say, give insights into this. I remember like sending out cold messages, LinkedIn, emails, just for people to, okay, like, how did you get into what it is that you're doing now? And I think from that, it just like better the idea of, okay, you know what, like, why not just do something to also offer that advice or guidance to other people. And I think what the search made me realize was that, yeah, some people will say, oh, all doctors in Nigeria are doing clinical medicine, but the truth is not all doctors are doing clinical medicine. When you start searching, you begin to see doctors in finance, doctors in tech, doctors in clinical research, doctors in, in one of the companies I worked for, there was a dentist that was working in human resources, and she was like, that was really what she wanted. So you would see that doctors are working in different places, but because you're not quite aware that all of this is possible, then you feel like you're limited to just doing clinical medicine, which is not a bad thing in itself. But I think just knowing that you have options helps, so that if you decide to, okay, this is the option I choose, you're not choosing that option just because this is the only available option. You're choosing it because you've seen everything out there, and then you've made your decision that out of everything that is available to me, I'm making this choice. So I guess that's like the end of my introduction. I'll just go down according to the list I can see on my screen. And I'll just call names, and please kindly just unmute. And if you can share your video, please do. I know I'm not sharing my video right now. It's because my system is, I don't know, it's having a mind of its own right now. But if you can share your video, please do. But at least just introduce yourself. So your name, maybe your current, should I say, level, or where you are right now, and then what you hope to get from this session. So I would start with Eniola.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Eniola. I am currently post-house job waiting on my NYSC. So what I hope to get from this session is I'm trying to figure out options that I have other than clinical medicine, so I know the next step to take. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nola. Hopefully after this session, you would have some, shall I say, some guidance or better be able to better make a decision on where to go. If I Hi, if I
Hi, Kumi. Hi, everyone. My name is Ifai. I'm currently a clinical project specialist at Exin. I'm 6 months into the project management space, and I still have like a lot of questions. So I hope to get those questions answered in this session. Thank you.
all right, thanks, if I Iyanu.
Hi everybody. Ianu. I'm a psychiatry resident. I just curiously joined the meeting, just mainly curiosity, but I'm sure I would live with so many things.
All right, thanks, Iyanu. Oganekome.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kune, and I'm a medical doctor with house job for NYSC. So I'm looking to explore more options outside clinical medicine. Yeah, I think that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kome. Oluwafisolami.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Salami. I'm a medical doctor, post-house job, also in training to become a CRA. I am hoping to pick out other options apart from being a clinical physician and a CRA at the end of this session. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Salami. Tolani.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tolani. I'm a clinical project specialist at Exim. I think what I would really like, what I'm expecting from this entire conversation would be how to improve productivity. Like whatever career like I find myself, how really to improve productivity and to be better effective, because I know Dr. Faramola is a PM also, so I think tips and ways to go about it would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tolani. And okay, so the last person, Oyinda just joined us. So Oyinda, we are doing a quick introduction of ourselves just before we start this session. So could you just tell us, well, your name? I've already said your name is Oyinda. Your current level, are you post-house job, post-NYSC, working already, and then what you hope to get from this session?
Hi, Kumi. Thank you so much. I'm Oyindamola Emmanuel. I'm presently doing my house job, dental house officer, and I'm looking at changing my career path post-house job. So I'm trying to see what path would work well for me. I'm looking somewhere between project management, HR. So I'm trying to get a good grasp of what it would entail. That's why I joined the meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Inda. All right, so I think we've gone through everyone. So we're moving on to Dr. Faramola now. And well, I think I would want her to introduce herself just so that like from our introduction, she can go into just sharing more about our career journey to us. I'm going to share my screen again. The Faramola, I don't know if you also have maybe a presentation to share. If you do, I can give you sharing permission. If not, we can just have it very conversational.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can see me. I'm sharing my video.
Hi, Dr. Faramola, we can see you. Can see your
Right.
face.
Thanks everyone for joining. So my name is Faramola Ogunkoya. I'm sure you have seen the flyer, so you probably know my name and my face. I'm a medical doctor, just like everybody on this call. I mean, a doctor. Some people are medical doctors, others are doctors of dentistry. So I work in clinical research right now. And for most people who work in clinical research, especially for healthcare professionals who work in clinical research, they stumble upon clinical research. Not that, at least for most people that I've interacted with, not that they planned to get into the research space. But it's nice to be here. It's nice to be speaking to you guys, and I am really honored and humbled for DWS, if I can say that, for inviting me to speak to everyone today. So I'll go a bit, I'll talk a bit about my background and how I came to, you know, the realization or you know, I don't know, the decision, right? How I came to make this decision to work in the non-clinical aspect of healthcare. So like every grown child, I had hopes and dreams and aspirations. But I decided to be a doctor, one, because I was passionate about, you know, treating people. My dad was a physiotherapist who had a small clinic while I was growing up. And I used to see his interaction with, you know, patients and how they looked up to him to help them solve some of their issues. And, you know, when those issues get actually solved, the joy and the excitement for those patients was something that I learned pretty early in my life. So fast forward, I finished, you know, secondary school, and then I moved into university, JAM, and, you know, I got into medical school. My experience in medical school really wasn't the best, I'd say, and I'm sure it's pretty similar for a lot of people, even on this call. So for me, it was really like a toxic learning environment where the people who you revered as, you know, experts in the field, who had years and years of experience, and people who were like mid-level, who should be like mentors and, you know, tutors to the medical students, were really toxic, right? So we're learning in a space where people weren't empathetic towards one another. They didn't care about physical or mental health. You know, they would talk down on people. They would, you know, just behave anyhow, quote unquote. I mean, yeah, there were a few people who, you know, kind of stood out from the park, who, you know, didn't want that kind of toxic lifestyle. But I'd say the majority of the people who, you know, taught me, or who I kind of understudied while I was in medical school, they didn't paint a friendly, healthy work environment for me. So I think that sort of created a background, you know, in my mind about what clinical practice was. And I'm like, is this something that I really want to do? And then I hated doing calls. I mean, I like to sleep. So, I mean, why do I have to stress, you know, because I wanted to serve humanity and then I'd lose hours and hours of sleep. Not that that's a bad thing, right? But that's not something that I wanted to do, right? So that kind of sets the background. And then after medical school, I went to do my internship. I did my internship at Federal Medical Center, Abeokuta. It was not a bad place. I mean, compared to most of the places, it wasn't really bad. But again, the toxicity sort of just followed me there. So I'm looking at consultants who, you know, were mean to their senior registrars who were turned mean to their registrars. And of course, what you expect, you're the lowest of the low. So house officer, you know. So it was sort of like a continuation of what I had experienced in medical school. If that wasn't your experience, trust me, you don't know what you've enjoyed, but really that was my experience. apart from that, apart from the toxic work environment, growing up in Nigeria and seeing how everything is, sort of anyhowness, right? So there isn't, yeah, Tolani, you see, everybody's experienced it. And I hope it should change. I hope it does change, because I mean, we can't continue in that line. But that's another topic for another day. Apart from the toxic work environment, right? So just like Nigeria, anyhowness just follows you everywhere. So even in clinical practice, in the hospital, anybody's just doing anyhow. Anybody can feel because I have a certain position, I can wield that power any way that I like. That was another thing that was, putting me off in terms of, going into clinical medicine. Something else that also did it for me was the fact that patients, because we're working in such a bad environment where things that should be basic, that ideally should be provided as part of the care, patients would have to, out of their own pocket, buy. So we're talking about things like gloves, needles, things like that. I'm like, this is basic. Why do we have to stress patients to, buy these things? On top of that, you have the majority of the patients who can't even afford what is basic, right? So you can imagine in a federal medical center where the cost is really minimal when you compare it to private hospitals and things like that. They can't afford care. So during my house job, what I found was sometimes I would be the one to pay for patients' care. Like you need to buy syringe. The mother doesn't have money to buy syringe. So out of the kindness of my heart, I'm just looking like, you can't buy syringe. This child has fever. We have to give something, This is my shift. I have to document that, I have given PCM, whatever milligram, and the patient doesn't have. So you take out of your own money and then give to the patient to go buy, and then, so that you can do your own stuff. That's another thing that put me off. But the ultimate thing in all of my experience from medical school and also during house job, I realized that, there was a lot of need, and I didn't want to meet that need from a one-on-one standpoint, meaning I didn't want to affect lives one by one. I wanted to affect lives, kind of in a broader perspective, not because I'm interacting with one patient day to day. So at the time I was thinking maybe I should do, what everybody would think if you're trying to do something that is not clinical, but you wanted to affect a lot more lives, was public health. But I didn't go that route. I decided not to do that, because there are many ways in which a doctor, with the knowledge that you have of healthcare and the way that healthcare is and the way that patients need to be addressed and treated and what is ideal, right? There are many ways in which you can serve patients or people within healthcare that definitely didn't have to do with you saying not pale, anicteric, acyanosed, and things like that. So, so for anybody who's here who's thinking, what do I need to do? First, you need to think about what you like and look at what your end goal is and what kind of impact do you want to have. So I think, those three for me helped me to kind of decide what I wanted to do. So after house job, I decided I wasn't going to go looking for private practice work. I didn't bother applying to hospitals to, do PP work. I mean, I did go for a few interviews. I didn't do that much. But the last straw for me was that one time when I went for an interview at this hospital where they were saying I was going to be a resident doctor, meaning I would leave there for like for the whole Monday to Friday, and then I would get 2 weekends off. I was supposed to be a resident, and they were going to be paying me $80,000. Sorry, not dollars, 80,000 naira. I mean, it really wasn't about the money, but it was about, the mind, right? Was I going to be in a right space because I wanted to be a doctor. I mean, mental health is important, physical health is important, happiness is important. So those things, really helps me make that decision. So after house job, I went for service, did my service here in Lagos, and then I was looking for any way that wasn't clinical practice that I could share my skill, grow myself, and also impact on patients and patient journeys. So I started off in health tech. So I did a bit of what's it called now? Yeah, health tech, that's what they call it, for a few years. And then in between I had breaks because I had kids, and then, I went health tech, and then, I had a kid. And then after I had a kid, I took a break for a while, to raise my child, my first child. And then I went back into health tech, and then I had another baby. So the last health tech company that I worked for, that I had another baby, the company didn't do quite well because we were trying to launch a product that wasn't quite ready, and the funding wasn't coming, as well. So the company had to downsize, and then after a while, they had to shut down. So I had two or three stints in health tech, and I'm like, it didn't seem like I was going anywhere. So what's next for me? That's how I landed in clinical research. So that's my journey. Clinical research, like I said, I stumbled into it. I didn't really plan out to go into clinical research. And that's another thing that people have to understand. So sometimes you don't have it all, set. You don't have it all together, right? Give yourself, the patience, give yourself the grace, to find yourself along the way. Which really is what life is, right? Nobody knows you can have a goal in mind, but how you get there, you necessarily don't know. So give yourself, that mind that, you can pivot here and there, but ultimately you have your mind or your eyes set at a certain goal that you're trying to get to. This goal doesn't have to be, the goal doesn't have to be focused. Yes, it does have to be focused, but don't be closed-minded about the goal, right? So have a more impactful thing that really is about yourself rather than about your career. Yes, you should have a career goal, but in the end, it's really about yourself and your happiness that does matter. So for instance, if I say my goal is to become, in my career, my goal is to maybe attain the level of, for myself, my goal is to attain the level of executive director in a company within clinical research, right? But that's not my life's goal. So as I journey through my life's goal, other goals, get connected, your career goal, your financial goals, your educational goals, they all kind of get connected, right? So don't be so closed-minded about how you're going to get there. Have a focus, but be flexible about how you're going to get there. As a medical doctor, right, you can do a lot of things. And I know that the kind of training that they give us, at least here in Nigeria, doesn't really point out those things to you. So when you're in medical school, you're looking at people who have spent their lives going to medical school during residency and then becoming a consultant and then opening up their own hospital or clinic, right? And that's what you see is what you can imagine. So they're not telling you about the other things. They're not telling you that, there is sports medicine, that there is, medicine within aeronautics and aerospace engineering. They're not telling you that, doctors can be architects when they're designing hospitals, and there are courses out there for it. So I guess, if you are out of medical school and you're wondering what you need to do, I think you should sit down and look at what are the things that I like. What are the things that I enjoy doing? Because at the end of the day, you want to do something that you enjoy doing, because it's going to push you at the last mile. You might start something now that you don't necessarily like to do, and you might get to the top of that, but you would, at the end, you would find that, you know, you have reached that peak, and it might not be satisfying or gratifying for you. But when you do something that you really, really enjoy, then by the time you get to the peak, there is something, I mean, you enjoy doing it anyway. So it's really not about attaining that peak or that plateau. It's just something that you enjoy doing, and you're growing along the way. So that's something that you need to think about. What do I enjoy doing? So if this is what I enjoy doing, how do I connect the knowledge that I have, the knowledge that I've garnered as a medical doctor, as a dental person? How do I connect that knowledge into the thing that I like? So you would then require you to go back and search, do your own research. So how does that connect together? What are the things that I can do, you know, that connects these two things together? If you then find that thing, and I'm sure you would, if you look hard enough, you would find that thing. And if you then find that thing, the likelihood is that there's somebody else doing it. Maybe the person might not be within your reach or within your locality, but I'm sure there is somebody who's going to who must have been doing that thing. And if there is nobody doing that thing, why don't you create it yourself? So let's not limit our minds, right? You can only, I mean, the only thing that you know stops us in our realization of who we want to be is our mindset. Our mindset limits us, you know, as to what we can achieve. So if you think, I like interior decoration. I like to be an interior decorator, but I mean, I'm a medical doctor and I don't want to design people's houses. You can design hospitals. There are masters right now that's solely for that. Healthcare design, that's all. If you think that, you know, you like tech things, you like tech gadgets, you know, if you think that you like data analysis, if you think, just think about it. Think about anything that you like to do. The likelihood is that there is something healthcare. There is a place in which healthcare can plug in and then you can play in. So I think, you know, you going back and looking at those things would help you narrow down what it is that you want to go into. Now, once you've narrowed it down, how then do you start on that journey? So it's about you taking a step back, doing your research, introspecting, right? And setting, you know, goals that you need to meet in order to get into where you're going. So for instance, I'm currently in clinical research. Like I said, I stumbled upon it, but thank God I did stumble upon it. So if you want to go into clinical research, there are certain things that you need to know about clinical research. So I'm sure what you knew as clinical research in medical school, you'll be shocked. It's quite different from what we actually do right now. What people think that we do as clinical researchers. Well, let me not say clinical, as a project manager in clinical research, working in a CRO. So CRO means Contact Research Organization. So you have to take a step back and go and learn about the things that you want to do. You have to have that background knowledge. You don't have to have all the knowledge. It's not even possible for you to have all of the knowledge without either going to get a further education on it or getting practical experience of it. Because even people who have these two things are still learning every day, because instances and occurrences come that, you know, might never have been thought about before, and then people have to learn as they go, right? In the best interest, you know, in what you're doing, you then, you know, start to learn. But you have to take the time, you know, to learn about the things that you need in order for you to put your foot in the door. Now, having done that, another thing that you need to do, and that is critical, and this is one of the things that I didn't do, you know, when I started my career, is networking. So you have to start to network. it is really important. It can take you from ground zero, to ground 100 in a condensed period of time. If you networking not only helps you connect with people who have industry experience in whatever it is that you're trying to do, but it also helps you kind of, look at what people who have done it before, how they, what their journey was. So it doesn't mean that has to be your journey, but you're learning from just looking at other people, learning from their own experiences, and ensuring that you take that in, not exactly replicate what they have done, but take the bits and pieces that fit, your own experience, and using that to sort of skyrocket or, pivot yourself to where you need to be. So networking is also very important, especially when you're branching out of what is tagged, the regular path, right? It's really key. And then another thing that needs to happen when you're branching out of what people would call regular is you have to have a strong mindset. You have to have a mindset that, my decision is my decision. When I was in medical school, like I said, everybody thought, you have to be, if you're a doctor, you have to go to the hospital or go to the clinic, see the patients, and that's who you are. And, you coming to that realization that that's not necessarily who you always be or who you want to be, people might not understand it. And it's not because they're trying to be mean or they're trying to be unrealistic or they're trying to be unreasonable. It's because your mindset is different. You're looking in another direction. They're looking in another direction. So what you would find is a lot of people will come to you to try to talk you out of what you're trying to do because, again, they don't think it's safe. They don't think, it's because it's irregular. It's not something that is defined. So that they're thinking, and especially parents, they are probably thinking, oh, you want to gamble your life away, or you want to waste all the years that you spent in medical school. Whereas you know that the knowledge that you currently have, is going to lead you somewhere else. So I guess, in summary, I'd say, know yourself, find what you want to do or what you're good at, see how that fits or that plugs into healthcare and, the knowledge that you have, learn about how how the industry that you want to go into plugs into that, and then have a thick, mindset, have a thick bone, because people are going to come at you to say that's not, what you need to be doing, or that's why you're gambling your life away and things like that. Well, that's my own perspective. And I think it's probably the same for most people who've gone to medical school. So let me touch a bit about project management in clinical research, because that's what I currently do. And that's where I intend to continue for the next few years. So project management, I mean, I don't want to go into details about, what project management is and how you do that, scope, time, quality, and things like that. But as a medical doctor, your path in clinical research is also different. I mean, there are a number of options as a doctor that you can undertake in clinical research. So it's not just the project management side of things. So if you're here and you're thinking you want to do clinical research, there are many options for doctors within clinical research that is not necessarily project management. So for doctors, you can, you can do project management. That's one of the things you can do. But if you want to apply stuff, like we normally say, if you want to be stuffy and you want to apply that stuff in the way that you do your day-to-day activities, then maybe you should look at medical monitoring. So medical monitoring, again, is also in two parts. You have safety and then you have pharmacovigilance. So you can all, go and do a deep dive of what safety and what pharmacovigilance is for medical doctors. Typically, doctors that have, some years of experience are the ones who work in that space. But if you work in a CRO or a company where they're just starting up, it's a startup, the likelihood is that they wouldn't really count on that years of experience, and then they would just absorb you, and then you can learn as you go. Same thing for project management as well. Apart from that, you can also do data management, right? So if you like data, you like numbers, you like data analysis, data management is there for you. Again, if you also like tech, right? Maybe you know how to code, you know how to do back-end and front-end things. You can also do data management because you can develop softwares that can help throughout the life cycle of a study. Another thing that you can do as a medical doctor in clinical research, so I've said project management, I have said medical monitors, so safety and pharmacovigilance, and then data management. Another thing you can do as a doctor is regulatory affairs. So typically that's done by pharmacists, especially if you're working in the US or the UK, they prefer pharmacists in there. But again, never say never. So I've seen a few doctors who are actually working in regulatory affairs. So regulatory affairs, for people who don't know, involves ensuring that the country in which those trials have to be conducted are conducted per the local regulations in those countries. So you have the FDA for whichever country that you're working with, the ethics committee as well. So either at the national level or within the hospitals where those studies would be carried out. So if you're looking to clinical research, those are 4 paths that you can look at. But I'm in project management, so I'll tell you what you need as a project manager or how to get into project management in clinical research. So I'd separate it into, working in that space in Nigeria and in other developed places where the clinical trial space, the clinical research space is sort of established, unlike Nigeria here, where it's still nascent and it's still, it's just starting to grow. So in Nigeria, and for me, I started off as a clinical trial lead, right? So a clinical trial lead, ensuring that, the objective of the study, right, is met. So you have the protocol that states what needs to be achieved for that study. And my goal every day is to analyze what needs to be done in terms of operations to ensure that the study succeeds. So the number of sites that we need to achieve the target target number of patients that's required for the study, how to separate and establish what needs to be done on a day-to-day, and ensuring that everybody that's working on your team, because at the end of the day, you can't do it by yourself. It's going to be teamwork, and you're going to have to wear the sort of like the leadership hat as a project, not necessarily a project manager, but as somebody working in the project team. I got in as a CTL, but usually you might get in at a lower rung. So for instance, the company where I work you start off as a clinical project specialist, and then you move up and get to a clinical trial lead, and then you move up and then you get to a project manager, and then you move up and then you get to a project director, a program director, and yada yada, until you get to ED or even CEO, MD, right? So that's the path, that's the career growth, right, within clinical research. But if you happen to get your foot in the door in developed places, you might not start off as a CPS. They don't even have CPS. They start off CTLs, but you might not get to start off as a CTL. So usually the journey for doctors, and especially IMGs, so international medical graduates, who go to these developed countries and start in clinical research. So they usually start as a CRA, which is clinical research associate. So a CRA, the function of the CRA is to visit those clinical trial sites and ensure that, what they're doing at those sites is according to the protocol and other related study documents that they have to follow. So you would get a number of sites. You wouldn't have one site. You would get a number of sites, that you would be charged with monitoring. So that's what they call it. That's the term. You monitor those sites to ensure that, they're following the protocols, they're following all the other regulations and guidelines, they're following the other manuals that are related to the study, just to ensure that the kind of data that is coming out of that site is, really good. And also that, the people who are doing the study there have the patient safety as, topmost. So those two things are really critical in all of, research, and everything within research is premised on these two things, right? Having good data that can be reusable, that can be reproducible, that can be authentic, that doesn't have errors, that doesn't throw out questions, that doesn't throw out, credibility issues. And then, of course, the safety of the people who are actually participating in those things, because we don't want situations where people are now termed as guinea pigs. And so the ones that are bad are tossed away. We want to ensure that everybody is receiving the best of care while they're on the study. So those two things are really important. So like I said, if you start off outside of Nigeria, you'd probably start off as a CRA, which is kind of, time consuming and, energy required. Because you have to go from site to site. You might get to travel a lot if you like traveling. Yeah, so that's a good plus, because CRAs get to travel a lot. They accumulate all kinds of perks and things for just being CRAs and traveling from place to place. But usually, like I said, they start with CRAs and then senior CRAs. And then if you're lucky and you have some additional certifications or diplomas, to back your knowledge up, you can move up to CTL, which is clinical trial lead, and then you go, like I already mentioned, like if you're working in Nigeria. So I think that, Nigeria is a good place. The opportunities are enormous if you want to stay here. The likelihood is that you will start at a higher cadre than if you went out of the country. But of course, there is that money aspect. Of course, the person who is outside of Nigeria, whether they're a CRA or whatever, they would probably earn way more than you're earning. So that's also something for you to consider. Yeah, so if you want to advance, right, so you also have to have project management knowledge. And of course, how do you prove that you have that knowledge? Is by showing a certificate or by showing some years of experience. So if you don't have a certificate in project management or a diploma in project management or a PMP even, I mean, you might not be able to move up as quickly as someone else who does. Right. So having that, somewhat helps you along the way. It helps you move faster. It helps you show competence, early on. And I think that was one of the things that worked for me. And that's why I started up as a CTL rather than, well, the company that I was working with, I was the first in the project management unit or department. So, I mean, I just sort of zoomed into clinical trial lead. But like I said, if you have, added knowledge, either by certificates or by experience that you can show, it moves you up, the cadre real quick. So if you're thinking about doing something in project management, either as a diploma or a certificate somewhere, or even PMP, so you don't have to do something really expensive. And I think that that's also something that people miss. So you don't have to, spend all your money to do projects, PMP, project management professional exam, or even any of the other associated PMI certifications, right? You can go on, there are lots of, what's it called now, online platforms that don't cost an arm and a leg, less than 50,000, and then you'll be able to get a certificate. So if you go to Udemy, go to Coursera, go to Allison's course, and I'm sure there are many others that I don't even know about. So, getting that background knowledge helps you show competence. And the likelihood is that that gives you a footing that if you didn't have it, would definitely give you. So that's something that you should think about. So for me, day to day as a project manager, my goal is to ensure that everybody on the team has what they need in order to succeed in their own individual roles. So whether it's in training, whether it's in the knowledge of what they need, or it's helping them understand their task, that's my goal. So that's one of the things I do as a project manager, managing people, ensuring that they have all that they need. Of course, with managing people, there are many things that you have to consider. You have to consider people's, characters and temperance and things like that. And it's hard to manage people, but as a project manager, it's something that you have to know how to do. So, Tolani, I'm not able to read all of your questions, but I'm sure when we get to it, Kumi would tell me what those questions and I'll answer it. So yeah, you have to manage people. That's one of the things that you're doing. Also, as a project manager, you're running day-to-day activities of a project. So whatever that project is, even outside of clinical research, as a project manager, that's what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be ensuring that, operations-wise, things are going smoothly. And then when there are hiccups along the way, you're there to quickly attend to those things, ensure that they don't have significant impact on the study conduct, and ensure that you're just gradually getting to your goal. Another thing that I do as a project manager is also, anticipating risks, and ensuring that those risks that I anticipate, not necessarily me, but the team as a whole, whatever risk that we've identified, we're ensuring that we mitigate those risks, and we ensure that, again, it doesn't impact on the overall study. That's another thing that we do. It's one of the things that you learn in your journey as a project manager, if you go the route of experience. But if you do get some project management knowledge in terms of either getting a course, doing a course, you also get to learn that as well. So risk management is really important. Another thing that I get to do is stakeholder management. So, managing the owner of the study is really important, because managing them and the way that communication is done. Right. Okay. So I have 5 more minutes. So let me just wrap up my talk. So managing, your stakeholders, your sponsors, the hospitals that you're working with, and the doctors who work there, especially your principal investigator, the PI, who is like the boss of the study at the hospital, the study coordinators, and some of the other site staff that you have to, have communication with. And also sometimes the patients, not that you're directly interfacing with the patients, but you might get to a point where you need to resolve certain issues or instances with the sites that they have to trickle down to the patient. So stakeholder management is also very key. Understanding how your sponsor wants things done, understanding how your hospitals wants their own things done, understanding how it affects your patients, all of that is important. And being able to kind of connect the three so that you're not impinging on any other person, you're not demeaning other people. You have to strike that balance. So that's, again, something that I do as a project manager. So I guess I'll wrap it up here. I'm sure I've seen quite a number of questions, being typed in as I was giving my lengthy talk. I hope I haven't bored you guys. But I'm open to questions. And I hope what I've said really has helped a few people. So let me just summarize. If you're a doctor and you're wondering, what do I need to do? I don't want to do clinical practice. Go back, think about what you actually want to do with your life, not necessarily with your career. think about the things that make you happy, think about the things that you enjoy doing, and then think about or research about how what you love doing and your medical knowledge connects with, what you can do, and then, take it up from there. Start a day, take a day at a time, and then keep growing at it. Reach out to people who have done what you want to do. And if you find that there's nobody who has done what you want to do, which I don't think there is, start it, right? What's the worst that can happen? You might fail, but again, that's just part of life, right? You fail, and then you pick yourself up, and then you do it again, and then you pick yourself up, and then you do it again. Okay, so one more thing that was critical for me, or one more thing that helped me define my journey. And I should have said this, before. The role of a mentor in your life is really important. So when I was, when I finished medical school and when I got my first actual job, I did clinical practice after NYC for maybe like 3 months. After that, I have never done it. But one of the things that was really, really, that really helped me define what I needed to do was the first boss that I had. So I had this boss who was determined at the time to bring, a streamlined way via tech of running hospital processes. And I learned tremendously from him because I worked directly with him. I learned a lot. And a lot of the things that I'm able to do now, a lot of my mindsets right now, a lot of the can-do mindset, can-do attitude that I currently have, I learned it from him. And I think that that's important. At the time, I didn't think he was a mentor to me. It was just somebody that I was working with, I was working for, that I was learning a lot from outside of, the medical knowledge that I have. That was how I learned about, business in healthcare. That was how I learned about some of the, tech things that I know, right? So having somebody, you might not call them a mentor, but having somebody who, you can learn from is really important. Having somebody who you can talk to about where you are and where you're going or where you think you're going is also important. So in whatever path that you take, I want you to look out for the boss in your life, who you can talk to, who you can relate with, who can help guide you, who you can learn, from their experience, from their journey. It would also help you. It would help you build character, especially if you get a good one. But if you get a bad boss, please, it's better to have a good boss than to have a good job. So the likelihood is that if you have a good job, but your boss is bad, you will feel frustrated, you would, wear out pretty easily, pretty quickly, and then you would feel drained and you wouldn't enjoy that experience. So for me, I always look out for the good boss. So if I go into a space, even if it's the best of companies and I'm working with a terrible, boss, I'm zoning out of there. And then within the shortest time, I'm exiting. So that's also something that, people need to think about. So if you're going into any company or you're going to any space, look for somebody who you can, and it doesn't have to be your boss. I mean, yes, having a nice boss helps, your journey, but, having somebody who serves as a mentor for you is really, really important. So I'll end it there, and then we can go into question and answer.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Faramola. That was really insightful. I think one thing that you mentioned that I think, should I say, resonated a lot with me was first of the fact that almost everybody that enters clinical research essentially stumbles into it. I know on LinkedIn I see a lot of memes, even like outside the country where you think, oh, it's better, more people are aware. Everybody's just saying, oh, how they're just not looking. And then one other key thing is that not being rigid. I think when I remember, so after house job, as I said, I wanted to do something non-clinical. I remember I did like a 5-year plan of, okay, like, so I'll do NYSC, then after NYSC, I'll do masters, then I'll do this, I'll do that.
this is 5 years. So 5 years since 2019 is like 2024. And believe me, like not nothing on that plan, nothing. So, and I think you said the most important thing is actually yourself, like what you like, ensuring that personally you're growing. And also, I think it just ends up showing that the job itself, yes, it's important, but the job is not what defines you. You are the one that defines yourself. So let's get into the question. So before I would actually like for us to, shall I say, speak the question. So it's not just myself and Faramola that are talking. So before I read out any question or share anyone, is there anyone that is open to unmuting and asking their questions? Before we get to maybe anyone that has been written or has been shared previously.
Hi,
Tolani.
Hi, Dr. Faramola.
Hey.
All right. Thank you for this session. I really like project management. I feel like in some area in our lives, we end up managing some project or the other. And I understand that, from time to time, we get into those phases where we feel like we're not just doing enough or we're not being, as productive as we'd expect. So I want to know, are there any tools that you use to, improve productivity or maybe get yourself out of that, fix where you feel like, okay, you're not just doing enough. What can I do to, make things better and get the plans that I have set, to work out? Thank you.
Right. Yeah, Tolani, so maybe we need to put more work on your desk if you're saying you're not doing enough. So for me, when I have so much to do, sometimes I get into a space where I just zone out. I don't want to do anything, but the deliverables have to be met anyways, because in clinical research, in clinical trials, if you're not doing what you should be doing, you might create significant delays in, doing certain things. So for instance, if you're supposed to reach out to the sites and provide some feedback to some people, if you don't provide that feedback, it delays some things that you're supposed to do going forward. So it can have significant, sometimes insignificant, but sometimes it can have significant impact on the conduct of a study. So when I get into that headspace where I think I just want to zone out, what I typically do is I give myself some time, I give myself a break. I, try to, just not think about work and, try to get back into the zone, quote and unquote. And then when I come back, I kind of attend to those things that are really critical. So one of the things that I do especially when I start my day, I look at, all the things that I need to do, and then I sort of prioritize them. Which ones have the most risks? The most impact, which ones have the most risks? And then I put them in those boxes. I don't know, there's one, I can't remember what the name is now, where there's one tool that you can use if you've done monitoring and evaluation and things like that. I can't remember what the name of that tool is. Or project management, if you've taken anything in project management. So there's that tool where, you have high impact, high risk, or high impact, low risk. So you kind of put it in those 4 buckets. And then you do the things that have the most impact and have the highest risk if you don't do them, because you know that, if you're not doing those things can have significant impact. So you take those out of the way first. Then I do those things that, after that, I do those things that I know are high risk, meaning that they have the most impact, but you don't need them like ASAP, right? So if you don't need them ASAP, they can still wait. So I guess it's looking at what other things that you need to do, either as a project manager or even anything in life, to be honest. So looking at the things that you need to do and putting them in those buckets to say which ones are the most critical, which ones do I have to get out like immediately, and which ones have the least impact and can wait, or there's not even timeline to it. So you grade them and then you take those ones out of the way. By the time you do that, you have, I don't know if it happens to anybody else, but for me, by the time I do that, it gives me kind of like more energy to do more, because I know that I've achieved more. So my serotonin is going up and I feel, fulfilled. I've done something and I want to keep going, right? I mean, dopamine. So I keep going and then I want to do more. So if you do those things that, really important, have specific short timelines, you do those things, you've achieved them, right? You've delivered those things. You feel elated, you feel joy. It kind of invigorates your spirit and then you want to do more. In terms of the tools that you can use, I mean, there are many project management tools that you can use, right? Recently, I've found out that Teams is not just for having meetings and taking calls. There are lots and lots of productivity tools within Teams, but outside of Teams, there are many others. So you can use any other one that you like. There's Trello. I'm sure there's Slack, right? For people who know Slack, but this is more for people who work in tech, right? So just do your research, look for productivity tools that can help you, where you can put your tasks in, put them in buckets, which ones are the most critical, which ones have timelines or timeline bound, and which ones are critical but not time specific, and then which ones are not even critical at all and they don't have timelines, right? So by the time you do that, you're able to focus on, the things that are key, and then get to those lesser things, or like one of my CPSs said the other day, mundane things, right? You get to those ones much later. But outside of those, I think having, a strong self-motivation also is important, because if you're not self-motivated, the likelihood is that you would falter and you would struggle, because things in clinical trials are really fast-paced. You need to get things out of the way, pretty quickly for most things that you need to do. So strengthening your inner muscles, or your head muscles and your inner muscles, whatever that means, also helps. So self-motivation is really important. So I train myself to be able to work even in tough spaces, right? So even though you have multiple deliverables within a short timeline, training yourself to be able to function despite those kinds of environments is also, really important. Tolani, I hope I've answered your question. I hope what I've said will help you. But you can use productivity tools. Teams is one of those. Trello, like I said, is another one. Slack, again, is another one. There are many others that I might not even know about, that I certainly don't know about, that currently exist.
Thank you, Dr. Faramola. Really helpful.
Okay, I see multiple hands up.
Yeah, thanks.
Hi, Pharmola. Can you hear me?
Hi, Yemi. Nice of you to join.
How are you? Oh no, this is remarkable. I am so impressed with your, you sharing your experience with the rest of the group. And like I said in the comment, this is something that I really wish I had known when I was getting out of medical school.
Yeah.
I really wish I had the opportunity of, listening to a conversation like this, and it would have helped me to actually navigate, my pathway earlier. So for those of you who are listening to Faramola today, I think you guys have an incredible opportunity to chart a different pathway for yourself outside of direct patient care. This is it's such a rare gem what you're sharing, that I am hoping that people will take, really important, how important it is for what you're doing, and how it can really change your outlook in terms of career in clinical research. You really went in, outside of, your functional area, which is project management, you went, discuss all the other functions as well. I'm really impressed. I'm happy that, this is happening. One thing I would ask for is that I really wish that this would even be part of curriculum. I don't know how that
Right.
is even possible
Yeah.
for medical students to learn about this
Right.
even before they get out of medical school. The earlier people start knowing that there are things that you can do outside of direct patient care, outside of clinical practice, before you actually graduate, so that you can start planning and you can start networking, so that you can start, seeking out mentors, all of the key things that you mentioned. The earlier people start knowing that, and then they are not, railroaded into going into residency and all of that. I think that is one thing I wish, I'm hoping that, you guys have, a plan for, expanding what you're currently doing and, really expanding this into the younger medical students who are, trying to figure out what they need to do, like we all did. I mean, I went from trying to be a surgeon to wanting to be a radiologist to, and I'm here now. So kudos to you guys for doing this. This is remarkable, and keep it up. Keep it up. At some point later, if I'm able to, I would like to, come on and share some insight as well.
Thank you, Yemi. Thank you for coming and joining. I didn't know you would join, but thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, to what Yemi has said, if I had this kind of talk before I left medical school, my mindset would be totally different. The things I would be looking at would be totally different. And I think, like Yemi just said, it's really an opportunity for you to go back and think about what you want to do. Not to sound like a broken record, what you like, what are the things that make you happy? How does that plug into healthcare? Who are the people that are doing it? And what do I need to learn in order for me to be playing in that space? So, I mean, it's good when we did the roll call, most of the people who are here are either just out of medical school or just finishing internship and service. So it's not a bad time for you to catch this talk. So it's for you to go back and introspect about what you want to do.
Thanks, Pharmala, and thanks, Dr. Yemi. When I saw your name on the registration list, I wasn't certain you would join, but it's really nice to have you here. And definitely, I would send you a message to plan when you would be able to come on. Thanks, Pharmala. So, Iyano, I can see you have your hands up.
Thanks, Dr. Faramola, for the talk. Okay, so my question is a bit weird, I think. And you've said that people should try to find out what they like. So the question is, if you know the things you don't like, but you're yet to find the thing you do like or the thing you want to do, you just have a list of things you know you don't want to do. What's your general advice for that?
Right. So you might not necessarily know the things you like yet, because again, like I said, your experience forms your mindset, right? So it's the things that you've experienced that you have an opinion about. So what I would say for somebody who who understands the things that they don't like, is to put yourself out there to experience new things, because it's in experiencing new things that you come to the realization of what you might like. So if you say you don't like this and you don't like that, but you keep playing in those spaces, the likelihood is that you will not find out the things that you actually do like. So yes, there might be barriers in terms of you being able to do some of those things, but it's again your will, your attitude, right, to want to learn those things, to want to find out how you can put yourself, get into getting to know those things, that ultimately would count, because it's in doing that you would then find out the things that you would like. but it's unlikely that you would not like anything at all. Maybe you don't like it, it doesn't give you epiphanies, right? But there are certain things that you would certainly like. So for instance, if you're in residency, for instance, and you realize you don't want to be seeing patients, but you realize when you're taking those notes, you don't find it as bad. So do you want to explore something that you don't find as bad as against things that you don't like? That's also something that you have to look at whilst you're on the journey towards discovering those things that you like, because you can't keep doing the things that you don't like. The likelihood is that you won't enjoy it. So the things that you're not really neither here nor there about, you can keep doing those things whilst you're on your journey towards finding out, the things that you might like. So I think, you putting yourself out there, trying new things, engaging with people who have tried new things or things that you haven't tried before yourself, having a conversation with them, learning from their own experience, going to, spaces such as this where experience is shared, new perspectives, are unfolding for you, I think, helps you in that journey towards finding out what it is that you might like, or what are the things that, you might not necessarily like, but you could play in those fields as well. Iano, so I don't know, is that something you're
yes, thank you. Thanks a lot.
right?
Thanks, Pamela. So I think just as an add-on, maybe I will just answer that question sharing like some personal experience. So from medical school, I think people already knew that like I really liked research, although like when I say research, I wasn't even thinking like clinical research, just like regular research. And then medical school, I used to do data analysis. To be fair, like thinking about it, I don't even know if it's that I really, really like doing data analysis. I was just doing it so that when I do it, then I'll get more extra money. And so when you cannot do it, then I just end up doing. And after, when I was thinking of, okay, what can I potentially do? I was like, oh, I can do like data science and analyze data. And I was having a chat with someone yesterday, and so he currently codes, and then I was just saying, oh, there was actually a time when I wanted to do data science, but I think I struggled with it. I don't know whether it's that I didn't commit a lot to it, or because I felt like, oh, I like seeing data and all of that. And I was like, that maybe it's just not your thing. Like, so you would have thought that, oh, this is what I actually liked. But then you start doing it and you realize that you're struggling with this thing way more than other people. And then on the flip side, I shared something on my Twitter and I think WhatsApp today about how I ended up in like Exin right now. So I had worked with 54 Gene, and well, at the time 54 Gene wasn't doing, I don't know what they do now exactly, but at the time they were not doing like clinical research in terms of like clinical trials and all of that. So I was mostly doing a lot of quality assurance and visiting sites, and almost as if I was working like a CRE, although it wasn't called a CRE then because it wasn't clinical trials. And then when I saw the Exin ad, the reason why I did not even want to, I think I'd seen it in June, but I was like, I don't want to enter clinical research, so I didn't go. Then I saw it again in August, and then at that time I didn't have a job, so I was like, I could as well just go. And then I went, and I was like, this is just going to be another 54 Gene. Do I really want to do this? But I really did not have an option. Then I did it. I remember when I got the job, and then I told my friend, bad, all of that. And then I was just looking that, I don't know, do I really want to do this? And I know a lot of things happened the first few months, but now I feel like people see me talking about clinical research and everybody just like, you really like this, and now like people don't even know, like it's not like so it now begins to look like, oh, I was very intentional in finding this. And as I said, like my 5-year plan post-house job, the thing of, let me just be open, the thing of my 5-year plan post-house job was policy, and right now I'm supposed to be working in Ministry of Health according to my 5-year plan. But then about 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to work in Ministry of Health, and I found that I hated it. Like, just to put it simply, I hated it. So I think it's just really a fine balance, and as Dr. Amla said, just keep trying. Like, don't be rigid. Don't think the ultimate thing is yourself. Like, you're improving yourself. So regardless of the space you find yourself in, make sure like you're putting in your best. And then if you realize that, okay, this is not working for me, instead of slacking in that place, just find something else so that you can be your truest self. So yeah, I think that's
Right.
just it.
Kumi, sorry, But before we move away from that, I wanted to ask Yanulua. So you're saying that you don't currently know what you like, but that's probably not true. So is there anything not related to, medicine or clinical practice? Is there anything that you take joy in?
I'm not sure how to answer that on a public, right? But well, there are a couple of things here and there that I enjoy.
Yeah.
I think for me personally, ultimately, my goal is to move out of medicine completely, either clinical medicine or whatever medicine, right?
Right. Okay.
That might involve a bit of an overhaul, which I'm currently not at a place in my life where I can have that overhaul done.
Right.
So I'm just taking things one step at a time. There are a couple of things I like in bits and pieces. None of it is coordinated, particularly. I enjoy mental health very much, and ultimately one of my goals is probably to still go into psychotherapy. It's not something I'm willing to pursue in Nigeria currently, but I don't know again. I'm just not, I don't know, I'm not sure this is, but the answers were great and helpful. I'll just keep doing the work so that I can get to the point in my life where I can pursue the things I think I want to pursue.
All right.
In and out of medicine.
Right. So like I said, even the things that you want to do outside of medicine, there is a possibility that there's a way that your medical knowledge right now can play into that. So I don't know what the most ridiculous thing that you think, exists. Healthcare would play in that space, because at the end of the day, we're talking about people and their health, right? So just think about, the remotest career path the remotest thing, right? The likelihood is that healthcare is playing there. So if you're talking about food, you're talking about nutrition, healthcare is playing there. If you're talking about human resources, you're talking about people, the mental health, healthcare is playing there. If you're talking about, I spoke a bit about aerospace engineering and aeronautics. There are medical doctors in that field, although that's more like, clinical. Interior decoration, transportation. Imagine there is some way that healthcare is playing in that space. If you want to, you can go and find out how, research about it, look for the people who are already doing it, learn from them on how they've done it, and also, find a way to put your foot in the door, and you'll be on your way. So I don't know what those things are, because you said mental health. Yeah, mental health is like clinical, but not so heavy in clinical. I mean, psychiatry was one of our safe havens, because it wasn't so bad in terms of the work environment. But even if it's outside of that, right? Outside of, like you said, outside of medicine in general, there is still a way that your medical knowledge can play into it, and then you can shine and grow in that part as well. So I wish you all the best. I do hope that you find those things that you like some more, and I hope that you take the opportunities that may come in that regard.
Thank you.
Okay, so sorry, I also want to just last one on this, then Olichi, I can see your hand up. So I think I also want to say that if you want to leave healthcare completely, I think it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, so that's another thing that some people are like, oh, I don't really like this, I don't like that, and then because so on DWS we've had at least I think we've had like 2 people that were completely not like. So there's a doctor that was completely in finance, but somehow, like, obviously, like sometimes because you've spent like 10 years of your life, like somehow you still connect. So I think what you maybe after like years of his career, he then was on the board of a health insurance company, but like it was not like actively, so like his own personal businesses and everything had zero to, it was all about investment, finance, like that had really nothing to do with healthcare. But then somebody found a way to re-enter healthcare by being on the board of a health insurance company. Some other people are going into like tech, and they're not even doing health tech or software coding for maybe a health records, and they're doing maybe something like, so there are like 1,000,001 things. And then I think so, because this tech thing I said, if you want to still stick with health, so there's this Google Health. So I think a lot of you may not really know about Google Health, but Google Health is like the subsidiary of Google that is heavily invested in health. So there are people that are also working in good. So you can even enter tech and be a doctor. So the possibilities are endless. Like that, I think that's really like what the possibilities are endless. But I guess maybe because of the environment we are in Nigeria, it's so possible to limit one's mind. So yeah, I think that's that on that. So Oluchi. Hi, Oluchi.
Hi, Kumi. Good evening. Thank you so much for this, for organizing this. Thank you, Pharma. Like, I've learned a lot, and this has answered so many questions I didn't know I had. Thank you so much. And I just like to summarize a bit of what I learned. Pharma, from all you said, even though I joined a bit late, sorry, but from what I gleaned from what you said is it seems like a project manager is a middle person between everybody. Like the person is, a project manager is in between the team members and the sponsors and the site. So you have to manage everybody, manage everything, and keep everybody and everything happy, and ensure that everything is going to, everything is going according to plan and time. That seems like a great deal of work, because aside from managing the project, like it'll be different if it was, physical, just physical, like I mean, it feels like, I mean, it is, that you're managing people, people that are dynamic, with different idiosyncrasies. So I don't know how you do it. That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you do, but I mean, you're doing it well. So kudos to that. I mean, that's really wonderful. So and before I go to my question, I also want to say thanks to Kumi too, about what you explained about finding other opportunities outside medicine, or finding a niche for yourself within medicine. Because I mean, when I was in medical school, I discovered that, or I know that I've always had some sort of literary flair. I like clinical medicine too, because I had empathy, but I knew how to write, I knew how to sing, I knew how to dance, I knew how to do things that were not considered traditionally medical. I was not the quintessential medical student. So I considered leaving, but with growth, I also learned that that there's a niche, there's always something to do with medicine. So maybe just to save time, I suppose I could ask you guys questions about how to carve a niche for myself in areas that are not traditionally medicine, like clinical medicine or clinical research even, just to save time. So on to my question. This one is for Faramola. I want to know, because I've noticed that human productivity has its peaks and troughs. There'll be a time when myself included and people I work with have this heightened level of productivity, even with minimal prodding from me. They're just doing their best, and everything is going according to plan. And then there's some times that it just reduces for unidentifiable reasons. And you do your best, you try to give morale, and try to do your best to ensure that these people that you're working with reach these goals, to make your job easier, and to make the everything go according to plan. But sometimes it's not always like that. So I want to know if there are any tips you can share to help me with this, because I don't know, even in myself too, I've noticed that sometimes I'll just be fired up and I'll be working, with minimal stress or something like that. And then sometimes there'll just be this, for lack of a better a term to describe it. You just be some
Yeah.
sort of torpor, like languorous torpor. You just don't know what's going on with you, and you're trying. And the more you try, you just, you're just staring at the pile of work you have to do, and nothing is getting done. So I want to know if there's some tips you employ to get past this. And the last question, sorry. It's about following up. So I find that when there are a lot of things to do, like maybe you have 20 things, at once to follow up, and then sometimes you just miss one critical one because you have like your eyes are on like 5, and then you feel like if you delegate, they may not be done as well as you want to do them, as you'd like them to do. I think I have some perfectionism streak, so I think I tend to pile a lot on myself. So I just want to know if there are any tricks you have or you've employed in the past or you hope to employ to advise me. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Oluchi. So the one that goes for me, which is about how do you ensure that you, meet all your deliverables even when you're not at the best of yourself. So I think you probably joined in late because Tolani sort of asked the same question, right? So yeah, we are all humans, right? And we're not infallible. We have times where our energy, everything is just working to amplify our productivity. And then there are times when you're not in that headspace, you don't even want to be productive, you have a head block, and you're just kind of stuck. So things are moving pretty slow. And that happens to everyone, even the best of us, right? So for me, like I said to Talani earlier, so what I do is I take a break because you can't be in a space where your mind is not ready to do anything. You can't force your mind to do it, right? You can try, but the likelihood is that you'll probably be doing next to nothing or even little. So what I do at those times is I take a break. I try to, kind of refresh. But even though it's hard because sometimes you have things that you have to deliver like immediately on time, like, you have short timelines, but you always need to take that break to sort of reset and, re-energize and refuel if you have to. So take a break, do something that can bring your mind back to where you need to be, something that you would like, something that beefs up your energy. So if it's listening to music, if it's taking out time to read a book, if it's writing something down, there must be something that, that's a safe space for you. So try to do that thing within your safe space to try to, rework your mind so that you can get to a point where you can be somewhat productive. So once I do that, I then look at all the things that I need to do. So all the things that I need people are asking me for, all the things that I need to put out. I take a look at this, and if you want to, you can make a list. So lists are a very simple tool that you can use. You can either take a pen and a paper and write down all the things that you need to do, or you can use productivity tools, right? Whatever that productivity tool that you like to use, and you should have one if you're in project management, because it helps you not only to remember those tasks or those things that you need to deliver, because the likelihood is that with all the things, especially if you have more than 2 or 3 or more projects, the likelihood is that you would forget a specific thing because you're chasing some other things. But if you've written it down somewhere and you're going back from time to time to look at it, that will help you juggle your mind. So I usually, make a list. You can make a mental list, you can make a physical list that you write, or you can use a productivity tool. And then I try to categorize those things into critical, need immediate action. Critical doesn't need immediate action. Not critical, but needs immediate action. Not critical, but no timelines, right? So I put them in those buckets, and then I take those ones that are critical and need immediate action, and I get those off the way. Now, usually when I do that, for me, what I find is when I do those things, those ones that are critical and that have definite short timelines that I need to meet, by the time I do those things, I feel, the energy just comes because I know that I've put out some of the good work. And so I have a bit of fuel to move on to other things. So when I do those ones, I then go to the things that are maybe not so important and have timelines, right? And the timeline is drawing close. I pick those ones up. And then I move to those ones that are critical also, but don't have timelines. And then, the ones that are not so important, you can get to whenever you can, right? So, having that, and thank you, Kumi, for finding out the name of the tool. So if you've taken any M&E course or learned anything about M&E or even project management, we also use that in project management. It's called the impact risk assessment. So it's like a cardinal table. So you put them in those buckets and then you pick it up, the ones that, are key and important, and then, you do those ones. So for me, that helps. But again, it might not necessarily work for you because people are different. The way we approach things are different. So I'm sure you must have experienced something like that in the past. And there must have been a way that you tackled it that got you to the end result that you were desirous of. So I'd say, look at that. So you don't necessarily have to take the way that I do things. Look at the way that you've done something like that in the past that has really helped you, and look at how you can improve on it. Or if it's working satisfactorily for you, then just rinse and repeat once you go get to that space where you're not really as productive, or you're not putting out things as you normally would like to just go to that thing or that process where you've done it before. Pick up what you need to, do from there, and, just rinse and repeat. But like I said, lists are a fantastic way, put them in important, very important, not important, slightly important, or not important at all. And, just, attack it as you go. The likelihood is, like I said, once you have results doing one thing, you would have energy to keep doing it until, you've exhausted what you need to do. Thanks a lot, Faramola. Oluchi, did that help?
Yes, thank you, Faramola.
Okay. Okay, so just if I answer the question about expressing yourself in medicine, like with writing, and also I think to add to what Dr. Faramola said, so in the NHS, so when I have like a list of patients, like I typically write it on an A4 paper. And then I don't just write it and just list all the things that they need to do. I use like the patient stickers, and then anytime you see my job list, it just looks fine. Like it looks fine, like a carefully like written out thing with like all patient stickers and the jobs like just written under them. And most of the times when people see it, they're like, you're actually really serious. Like you put small boxes where you check and check. And the reason why I do that is because when I see like lists that are just disorganized, like it's as if as the paper is disorganized, my brain is also disorganized. So I just realized that having it like just look very neat and organized, I think it just projects some organization on me, and that works very well for me. Like, so sometimes when someone gives me a list that is very scattered, the first 10 minutes I spend it arranging the list. Sometimes the patient may not even have stickers. I will go to the receptionist to look for stickers, just so that I can have that list in the way that it just helps my mind. And that's what worked for me. I've seen some of my other colleagues, when you're giving them like stuff to them, they're just writing it in small, and I'm just looking at this and I'm like, how are you going to do this thing? But I really don't project them, because it's like, do what is working for you, let me continue. So as she said, different things work for different people. So, and this method, I didn't realize that this is what will work for me until maybe like 1 or 2 months down the line. So I think you just keep trying different things, and once you find what works for you, then you stick with it for as long as it keeps working for you. Then about expressions of writing, singing, and all in medicine. So I think when you asked that question, first thing that came to mind was arts in medicine.
For people that are in Lutz, from Lutz here, I'm sure most of them would know about the Arts in Medicine project. So Arts in Medicine is essentially, I think it's like a foundation where I've not read so much about them, but it's essentially a foundation that uses arts to improve like patient care. And that art could be drawings, paintings, writings, poetry, music. And one of my like friends was telling me recently our project is on arts in medicine, and then our supervisor was telling her how it's a topic that does not make sense. And I'm just like, that's because that person's mind is limited. Because even like in the NHS, I see like sometimes they just a whole world, you just like pictures that just maybe like there was something I posted like so like purple and white and all of that, and it was a picture that was trying to like depict was it acne, like skin conditions essentially, and all the emotions that people feel about it. And sometimes just seeing all those things can contribute to patient care. I know there's something about music helping in patient care. So all of those things are also ways that you can like express other talents that you think are not necessarily like tied to patient care. Even then for the writing thing again, there's also medical journalism that people explore. Although I know that with journalism, you're not really writing in a storytelling fashion, you're writing more in like a news format. But then in the storytelling thing, all of us know Apoko Doctor, like he's essentially doing some form of medical journalism, I would say, and it's like educating the public, but like using like simpler terms and just creating art in a way to is significantly contributing to the healthcare in Nigeria, even though it doesn't seem like it kind of seems like, oh, it's all a joke, but sometimes you see someone just say, oh, so and so happened, and then I remembered what Apoko Doctor said. And so there are different like ways that you can potentially express all of those things. And I think another thing to note is that it doesn't necessarily have to be your main job. Like, so someone like Apoko Doctor, now I don't know if he does other things, but at the moment it looks like the medical media is like his main thing. But like, if you know that, okay, you really like this, but you're not really ready for it to be your main job, you can still be doing your other jobs and you do it. Although when you decide to take on more than one thing, it's stressful, but nobody sends you. And yeah, I'm just talking to myself. All right. So Ianu, you have your hands up again.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to be tracking back a little bit. I apologize. I realized I didn't articulate myself well earlier, and again, I'm on a platform where everybody is, so I thought I could get insights to it. My problem with medicine, right, is that I really don't want to interact with people, generally with patients. It's draining, it gives me anxiety, it makes me all the responsibility of, the thought of the responsibility that I'm in charge of someone's life is a very anxiety-inducing thought. And I have interest in so many things. I have interest in food, in the making of food. I have interest in art, pottery, painting, ceramics, design, basically. I have interest in agriculture. The only thing that it seems that, which was I mentioned mental health and psychotherapy earlier, that was the only thing that I have an inclination to, but long term, I don't want to interface with people, with patients, I don't want to interface with people in clinical medicine, and my interests are very scattered and wide apart. And then there's also the nagging question of, can I earn a good income with these interests? Is this something I want to, food, for example, do I want to make food my main career? Is that something I want to do long term? Which is why I had earlier said there was confusion. I know some of the things I like, but I'm not able to get myself into a place where I'm able to articulate how to make them into a career properly. So currently, I'm just going for the safest thing that I can access. But I don't know if there are insights into how to merge wildly, I don't know, how to make a career out of these things. I'm not sure. There's so much confusion in my head, and I'm just taking it one step at a time. The first step is to be financially comfortable, and then maybe I can now think. But if there are insights to that, I would appreciate it.
Okay, so yeah, I knew you were going to like food. When I saw your picture, I'm like, this baby must like food. Yanu, so, so yes, there are many opportunities, with nutrition and agriculture that a medical doctor or somebody who's a healthcare professional can pursue. I don't know if you've researched about them, but there are many things you can do within that space that are rewarding. So again, it's about you going back and doing the research. You going on, like I'd like to say, Google is your friend, right? So anything I want to know, I usually start with just checking Google, putting a sentence or what I'm thinking in my head, and the likelihood is that Google will churn out something, and then I just, start to read about things like that. So I'd say, start researching about it. There are many things that, doctors can do in nutrition, and that agriculture also ties into. So if you're thinking about clean eating, you're thinking about non-GMO foods, things like that, or, or even, maybe not like a dietitian, but, in terms of how what people eat affects their health, if that's what you're thinking about, there are many things that doctors are doing and can do in that space. So it's about you going back and looking at what you want to do. If another question that you had asked is if it's rewarding, there is no field that you would go to, that you would undertake within healthcare that isn't rewarding. I mean, in the non-medical, non-clinical aspect of things, that isn't rewarding. Now, the reward is varied, and there are levels to it. So for somebody, for instance, who is working in health tech, what the person would earn in terms of the reward, in terms of, what they earn, might not be the same as what somebody in nutrition would earn. And it's certainly not the same as what, somebody in research would earn. So I guess you have to determine what exactly is priority for you. If priority is what I'm able to earn so that I'm, living a comfortable life, as against, top of the mark for me is, the impacts that I have, with what I'm doing. It then sets your priorities. I mean, it makes you see what you want to do differently. Because if you're saying that, what is the most important thing for me is to make money, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, everybody wants to, have money and have a comfortable life, maybe in varying degrees, but I mean, everybody wants to earn something that can keep them from day to day and, pay for their basic needs and possibly maybe, one or two luxuries. But if that is topmost for you, then it changes what you need to be doing, rather than if you say your, the impacts that you want to have is what is topmost for you. God help you if, what you're going to earn from what you want to do matches the kind of impacts that you're going to have. Those are the people that have it the best. But some people don't have it that way, right? Some people have something that they know that, and would give them the most joy, the most happiness, but might not necessarily pay as much. Not that you won't be earning something, but it won't pay as much as maybe something else. So again, it's for you to go back and look at it, right? Because, priorities are different, your situation is different, and the way we see life is different. So it's not a straightforward answer. It's about you going back and doing the research and having a conversation with yourself about what are the important things in my life, what are the things that I need to be doing at the end of my career, at the end of my journey, what would have made me happy looking back, right? If that's important to you again. So looking at what's important, looking at what's out there, looking at what you like and what you think would, impact on your own personal life. And, if you want to impact on other people's lives as well. Looking at where all these things come together like a melting pot and picking that thing out is what you should be doing. I don't know if...
Thank you, Dr. Faramola. So I think what I'll just add on to what Dr. Faramola said is similar to, I think, what I mentioned earlier. So the fact that, first off, you don't necessarily have to do all the things you like as a career. sometimes you can have your career that you like, and then you have other expressions of you that like you still do. Then secondly, also maybe realizing that the career journey is a long one. I know recently, like, I think that's just what has been resonating in my head. The fact that the career journey is a long one. So on the average, people have like a 40 to 50 year like career span. So the fact that you didn't start out being maybe just random, now the fact that you didn't start out being a chef immediately after school does not mean 20 years down the line you cannot become a chef. Like, obviously there's the part of, like, get into what you really want early so that you can build the experience and all. But as we had said earlier, like, at the end of the day, what really matters is you, like, you as a person. So if you are competent and like you know your stuff, even in an industry that you don't really have like a lot of experience, you see people calling you to, oh, like, we actually have this opportunity, we think you will be a good fit for you. And also there's that understanding that like career journey is very long. So you may not necessarily start with something that you think is core to you right now, but it does not mean 5 years, 10 years down the line you would not pivot. So I think the most important thing is like trying to ensure that you have joy in the thing that you're doing right now, which I know may not be so easy, but you really have to find it. Then about the priority thing, also priorities change. You could maybe at a point in your life, your priority may just be that, like, obviously maybe you're fending for yourself, you don't have any family that is giving you money monthly, so your priority at that point is really survival. Like, you really just want to be able to have enough money, or maybe you're planning for a master's and you have to be the one to self-fund. So your priority right then is actually making the most possible money, which is not a bad thing. But then once you like get into a more comfortable spot, you can now, your priorities can then change, like, okay, I'm more comfortable now. I think, like, instead of just chasing money, because to be honest, the chase of money never ends. That's why Bill Gates is still looking for more money. Elon Musk is, you think that these people are billionaires in dollars, like, you can't even fathom the amount of money they have, but they still want more. So the chase for money can never end. So there has to come a point where you're not like, okay, I feel like I may not be the most comfortable or whatever, but I'm comfortable to a certain limit. Okay, do I want to switch my focus right now to maybe finding more impactful work? So again, I think it ties to that whole not being rigid, like just thinking about yourself at each point in time, and should I say manipulating your desires, your needs, your priorities all around, like what is what's going to be helpful and keep you grounded and joyful in that moment. Yeah, I think that's just what I wanted to add on. All right, so I think I saw Tolani's question. Okay, yeah, thank you, Yana. Yes, so I think Tolani's question in the chat was, because I think that's the only one I can see in the chat, about the certifications, and Dr. Faramola has also given an answer. And then I think last word on this is so Dr. Yemi that joined earlier, he currently works in clinical research in the US, and well, he has graciously said he's willing to come on. So I would possibly just reach out to him and see when he can potentially come on, and he will most likely be able to offer more insights into, should I say, the clinical research industry in maybe the US, Canada, or like other places outside of Nigeria. And I'm hoping like that would really be able to answer like every question pertaining, let's say, doing like research outside of the country. All right. So I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Pharma, can you just give us some last words of wisdom? Just
Even me, I'm looking for wisdom. Right. Thank you, everyone, for taking up time to join Doctors Without Stats. Thank you, Kumi, and all the folks at Doctors Without Stats for having me, just share my own perspective and journey with everyone on the call. I guess my takeaway would be, like I've said, and yeah, I've said it a number of times, there is hardly anything that human beings are doing, any human endeavor, that healthcare is not playing in. So it's, again, if you decide to use your medical knowledge, look for, those places where you can use it, that would bring joy to you, that would bring fulfillment and happiness to you. So, you know, take out the opportunity, take out the time rather to, you know, explore anything that you like and see where
Hi, can anyone hear me? I think Dr. Famla's network tripped off, or is that me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay, so
Okay.
it's Dr. Famla's
I
network.
think I
Yeah, let's just give her a few minutes to join back. So again, just while we're waiting for Dr. Famla to come back, thank you everyone. I don't, I really don't know how to summarize everything, but I guess like everyone, I'm just hoping that everyone has learned one or two things. Even I myself, like definitely there's no end to learning. And yeah, I think beyond the learning, I know there's usually this thing that happens that people say, well, it happens and people like keep, that's why people like talk against like maybe motivational speak and all. They're like, oh, when you go in, you're all fired up and gingered. You have like, oh my God, I can do this, I can do that. And then like 2 weeks down the line, it's like you're back to square one. And I think the only thing that can combat that lethargy is, should I say, putting in the work in the part that like you want to do. So for instance, if maybe you're on this call and you're not particularly sure what you want, and maybe the first thing to do after now is, okay, write down a list. So I know I had said earlier that I had a 5-year plan and nothing on that plan is currently working. Well, not that not currently working, but it's not there. But that does not mean you shouldn't have a plan. You should have a plan. Whether the plan now ends up happening or not should not hinder you from having the plan. So the formula is back. So over to her. You're muted.
Sorry guys. Yeah, so internet was acting up. Yeah, so I guess, you know, my parting words would be open, have a career goal, but also don't be rigid in that goal. Be open to learning new things, be open to exploring new things that you don't have knowledge or insight in. Because like I said, it's in exploring new things that you find out what you like, right? So practical example, if you know, while a child was growing up, if they didn't have, you know, the opportunity to maybe play an instrument, they might not know that they like to play an instrument or they're even gifted at playing that instrument. It's because they've had that exposure that they then realize that they have that ability. So be open to, you know, exploring new things, be open to, you know, I guess zigzagging whilst you're on your career journey. And also, you know, be open to learning. So self-learning, take out time to read up on new things or things that you think you have interest in. Take out time to develop yourself, because again, in whatever endeavor you want to go into, the way that you're able to advance is through either experience or competence in knowledge, right? So I guess that's another one. And then the last thing is look for people who have, you know, experienced, people who have experienced where you're going, people who have experienced there, people who have undertaken that endeavor and kind of have succeeded, or even maybe people who haven't succeeded, right? Because there is something to be learned from people who have succeeded in a certain field and also people who have failed in certain fields. You can use that in your journey to make your own decisions and to grow as well. So I think that's what I'll part with, those important things. You know, it would really help you to decide what you want to do, what you need to do to get there, to, you know, to that desired point, and how it also defines how you will get there. For people who are looking at project management is easy, hard, I'd say. It's easy because, I mean, it's not a lot of stuff, right? I mean, from somebody who was reading Ganog and, you know, all kinds of highfalutin stuff, you know, learning that and then coming to product management is not so hard. But in terms of doing the mental work, in terms of the everyday physicality of, managing people, managing stakeholders, ensuring your deliverables are met, ensuring that, you're on top of the risk and you're mitigating those risks. It really is or can be tough. So yeah, again, you have to develop your own Okay, I think the network is out again. I think we should just give like another minute or two for Faramola to join. But once she just shares our last words, then we can bring the meeting to a close. I'll just really again like to thank everybody for joining. Thank you for sharing, and we are all gonna make it at the end of the day. Yeah, so thank you everyone, and wishing you a lovely, lovely Sunday evening and a productive next week. Yeah, I don't know if Dr. Pharma is going to attempt to join again, but I'm guessing we can just still stay on to see if she does make an attempt to join again. But if she doesn't, well, I guess this has come to an end. And it was really lovely talking to everyone.
All right, so for the three of us or four of us that are still here, so the Pharmola's network is still really bad, so I don't think she's joining us back. So this is the end of today's session. Thank you all and have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, Kumi. Bye.
Bye, Choma.
Bye, Kumi.
Bye, Kalani.